What could two people that were just average people, he was a salesman and I'm a cosmetologist by trade, what in the world are we going to do about this? And it sent us on a journey to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma, go to Bible school, get trained up, and figure out what two people could do to make a huge, audacious difference, but very normal, average people. We started getting national attention for how to prevent it and then how to restore it. And there was no best practices. There was no research out there. So we really had to pioneer something with a very few people on what is this and what are we going to do about it.
Well, welcome to this episode of the Business Brains and BS podcast. We are very fortunate today to be joined by Kristin Weis, who is co-founder and CEO of the Demand Project. Kristen, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, you are very welcome. So let's jump right into it. Tell us about the Demand Project. What's it all about?
Well, can I go back to how we even decided we needed to have an organization?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Okay, awesome. In 2004, Hannah was just born, and Joshua, my son, Hannah's my daughter, and Joshua was about 2.5. And me and who I was married to were living in Colorado, Castle Rock, Colorado, where you could ski and golf in the same day. And that's where I'm born and raised. And we were getting ready to go to bed like normal. We hear a story about a dad. It was a news story about a dad that had sexually assaulted his biological 2-year-old daughter. And he recorded his crime and he put it online for people to watch. And this is 2004, so the internet is super young. And it stopped me and Jason in our tracks, like, what is going on? And then at the very end of the story, it was that thousands of people logged on to watch the act. And not because they wanted to save the little girl, but because they liked what they saw. And that took me and Jason on a completely different journey for the rest of our life. Now we're 22 plus years later. And we wanted to know what the heck this crime was, who was doing it, who was getting affected by it, and what could two people that were just average people, he was a salesman and I'm a cosmetologist by trade, what in the world are we going to do about this? And it sent us on a journey to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma, go to Bible school, get trained up, and figure out what two people could do to make a huge, audacious difference, but very normal, average people. And Jason went the route of law enforcement. I thought I wanted to go law enforcement until I knew I had to get pepper sprayed and maybe tased. And I'd have to be on the street like a street cop. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so he's now a sheriff's detective over child sex crimes. And I'm a licensed private investigator. And we just started going on this journey. What in the world is this? And back in 2004, people weren't talking about human trafficking. They weren't talking about it in 2006 when we moved to Oklahoma. It really wasn't until 2013 that people really started talking about it. And we started getting national attention, figuring out how we could get national attention for how to prevent it and then how to restore it. And there was no best practices. There was no research out there. So we really had to pioneer something with a very few people on what is this and what are we going to do about it. And in 2013, after we had worked with a couple of other organizations to get them off the ground, we still weren't satisfied that everything was being done that could be done. So we started the Demand Project in 2013, and we really wanted to focus on preventing the crime, protecting the kids with quality legal care that were affected by the crime, helping law enforcement in the recovery of victims through advocacy, and then restoration. I never wanted to be a facility or a place it's a lot of liability and it's very expensive. And then in 2017, we were donated 54 acres and 9 buildings to become the largest capacity campus to serve girls ages 11 to 17. So there's a lot in between the journey, but that's kind of why we started the journey and what a couple of average people decided to become above average to make a huge difference for kiddos in this world that don't have a voice and are not being seen for what's happening to them. They're more being seen for the behavior from the consequences of the rape. So that's kind of in a nutshell why and what we do.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. Why don't you talk a little bit about the campus and the name and what it means and, just what services and the program and it just really what's the campus all about?
Well, that's a great question about why the name The Demand Project. It actually came from Jason. When her husband says that he feels that this is what we should do, you jump on it because he didn't normally just come up with names like that. The Demand Project means that there's got to be a need, a want for something that creates a demand for it. And that's what we want to stop. We want to stop the demand that fuels wanting to have sex with children. And and that's what he does. He goes after the bad guys as a 14-year-old girl online talking to bad guys. And so I applaud him in all of the work that he does. It's pretty amazing. And with the campus, we started out not knowing how to build a program. Like, what is a program for a child that's been pushed, forced, coerced into something so heinous like serial sexual abuse? And like, how are you going to, just because you have a building and just because you have a written down program does not make anything that's going to change the world for that child. And we have all kinds of manuals and policies, and we're licensed under DHS because that's what we had to do. The very first thing is, how do we get the campus compliant through DHS, the fire marshal, and the health department? That and remodeling this campus took 3 years, and we're still not completely done getting all of the houses compliant. We still have 3 more houses to go, so that will help us serve more children, but that was a lot because I didn't even know how you did that. And then you gotta build a program, and you gotta figure out what is best practice and what is trauma-informed when nobody knows. Like, nobody's doing this. It's a tsunami of crimes against one human, and how do you unravel 10 years, 13 years, 15 years of trauma, sometimes 40 years of trauma? How do you unravel all that without destroying that human? I heard a quote one time, "A familiar captivity is more comfortable than an unfamiliar freedom." And I feel like these kids and these people learn to live in this familiar captivity. And then we step in and we want to get them to a safe place and unravel all this trauma and teach them life skills and education. And we look like the bad guys because they've been coerced and manipulated into thinking that this was their choice, their decision, and they love this person. So when we started this campus, it was a lot to learn, and we're still learning. And to have a staff on that campus, like, there's what, 8 billion people in this world, and we're having the darndest time finding quality, good staff that can really press through all the secondary trauma that we have to deal with working with the kids that we serve. So it's a lot. It takes a lot of money and time and resources. And I was thinking this morning before I came on, you have to be blessed to be a blessing. So we have to have the money if you out there want us to be able and equipped to do what you're asking us to do. We can't do it with nothing. We have to have quality people. We have to have people that care about what we're doing to donate resources and time and their skill sets to help us. We need good therapists and good mentors and good a good, safe campus for these kiddos to live, because you can't just go put a teenage girl on a campus with nothing to do and expect they're not gonna cause trouble. So, that's a little bit about what we have to do. We can kinda pick that apart if you'd like.
I have a question about the name. You said you explained the name, the Demand Project, and that really struck a chord with me. I've spent a lot of my career working with people with addiction issues. A lot of drug addiction, when I watch the news or I hear people talk on TV or wherever, there's a lot of focus. Especially by politicians and things. There's a lot of focus on how do we go after the supply? We're going to go after this cartel or this country or whatever. And I'm sitting here watching it, the person working with these people with these issues. And I'm like, what about the demand? If there was no demand, there would be no supply. We wouldn't have to go after this cartel because they wouldn't have a business. So I love that you said that and that you made that concept part of the name. I'm curious your opinion on why there is not more focus on the demand, especially when something like this, it's, such a catastrophic problem, when it happens to people. Why do you think there is not enough focus on the demand side of that industry, so to speak?
I think, when we started out, it was so long ago, and it was still a massive problem, but it wasn't on the scale that we're seeing today because the internet. Like, the internet has brought it to being a click of the finger for child sexual abuse material and pornography. And now there are so many bad guys. It's like going fishing in the ocean and trying to get bad guys. You have to you have to be diligent to really do this work as law enforcement, but you had to be trained. When we very first started going on operations with law enforcement, it was back right about 2013 when we started. We went on a couple of operations with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Human Trafficking, and they were just starting to go into human trafficking. And they had normally just gone and done drug raids and stuff. And that was what they focused on. So that means you're going and you're finding drugs and you're putting them in the back of your trunk for evidence. Now, all of a sudden, shift to human beings and human beings that you think are victims, but they're not acting like victims. They're acting like the bad guy because they've been lured, groomed, manipulated, controlled. I heard a bad guy once say, if you can get a person to fall in love with you and get them addicted to drugs, you have your perfect victim because they'll get addicted to your love. But even if the love fades, they're still addicted to those drugs and that lifestyle that they think that they're choosing to have now. So that's a tough one. So when we were on the operations with law enforcement, it was tough. It was really hard to know how to train them and teach them how to be therapeutic in their conversations with victims that were looking like not the best people in the world. They were there, in a situation where you're going undercover and you're busting a human trafficking ring, there is prostitution within that. So there's behaviors. The person looks like that's what they want to happen. They act like that's what they want to happen. And so it's really hard for law enforcement to see them as a victim. And then if they're pretending to be the buyer, then you're not going after the buyer, you're going after the victims or the bad guys. So we need more operations where they're going after the bad guys and they're using an undercover person to set those bad guys up. And you can go all day looking for bad guys. There's a million out there. It's hard to prove a case. You don't have willing victims to prove a case. You have to go above and beyond a victim to be able to prove a case in a human trafficking situation. And there's not enough law enforcement out there to do as many as it takes to get as many bad guys that are buyers out of this. So it's a very complex thing. That's why I believe, Greg, in an MDT. And Greg is part of our MDT because of his expertise in mental health, but you've got to have everybody on board from the judges down to the nonprofits working together, or you're never going to go find those bad guys. You're just not. It seems like they're always going after the big drug dealers, traffickers, cartels. They're not looking within the family scenarios and just going after the buyers. And we've got to change that, Greg. I love that that's part of your passion as well, because you're never going to stop it if you don't stop the buyers. But now we've got online, and they can just sit in their comfortable little living room right here and exploit people online, in reality. So it's now massive. The problem is so bad. I don't know how we end the whole entire problem if we don't control the internet. I truly don't.
Well, and I know that's another big part of what you all do. Like you talked about the campus and everything, but I know that prevention is also a big side of what you do. So tell us a little bit more about the prevention side of things.
I love the prevention side, you guys. I've built a presentation for the youth ages right around 10, 11 to 17 years old. And I'm asked to go into schools and present to the students, whether it's an assembly style or it's in a classroom style. FCCLA is a really amazing program within schools. It would be like our home economic class when we were growing up. And so they bring in a lot of good, hard topics for the kids to prepare them to go into the world. So I go in and I start talking to them about vulnerability. I don't talk much about human trafficking. You're not going to walk into school and start telling them statistics about human trafficking and expect them to think that they're a victim of it, because they're not in their mind. So I talk about vulnerability and good decisions. It's really hard because as a society, we have determined that the youth, without their brains being fully developed, can handle the entire world on a piece of technology. And we're like, there's no training, there's no signing a contract for how you behave on it. There's just, here you go. Good luck out there in this world of predators. And so I talk to parents about being smart and wise about how they give their kids technology. We have a very simple piece of our prevention, and it's a contract that you do with your kiddos. And just take it from our website at thedemandproject.org, and you just download it and you change it however you want. But do not hand your kid technology without talking through your expectations. You own the phone. I feel like parents feel like they're being controlled by their kids that own their phones. They don't own the phones. And I would like to see legislation where parents are responsible for all that's on those phones from those kids. I would like to see, if there's child sexual abuse material from your child taking new pictures of themselves and sending it to somebody else, you've just produced and distributed child sexual abuse material. I'd like that to be penalty on the parent, not the kid. I'd like the kid to have consequences, but not the same as the parent, because it's our responsibility when they're under the age of 18 to supervise what they're doing. So I love the prevention, but it's hard, Greg, to get parents to come to these presentations. I get kids all day because they don't have a choice because they're in school. But with parents, they act like they care, but to get a room over 25 to 50 parents is really hard. So I'm going to put out the challenge to people. We've spoken to over 5,000 kiddos and parents and law enforcement this year. I'd like us to get past 10,000 next year. And I challenge every adult to get me in to do a presentation, hear what I have to say, get me on a show like you guys are doing. But don't look away, because if you're not watching what your kids are doing, I guarantee you somebody else is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And kudos to you guys for what you do. And I think you make a great point about the accountability and the responsibility that parents are shunning right now, and I think that can sometimes be just human nature, unfortunately. Um, Now, you also, as we were starting off, you also talked a little bit about the organization itself. So, if it's okay with you guys, why don't we maybe transition a little bit to running a nonprofit? Because I look at you and I've talked about this before. I don't like the word nonprofit. I like for impact organization, right? Because that's really what you guys are. And I think they're all, and I'm going to go on my soapbox here for a little bit. I think there's some misconceptions out there about for impact organizations, and it really frustrates me when people think that the people who work for a for impact organization don't deserve to be compensated the same as their peers out in the corporate world. Because the folks who are sacrificing and doing these things to, in your instance, to help these kids, to prevent these kids from getting sucked into this lifestyle, which I don't even know if that's the right word to use. I mean, there should be some financial security there for those folks, and it really chaps my hide. So anyway, all right, I'll get off my soapbox here. Um, so when you started, it was you and Jason and a couple of legal pads writing all this down. What does the organization look like now?
Yeah, I mean, we started in turning one of our bedrooms into an office, and unfortunately for our kiddos, once we jumped in, they had no choice but for this to be their entire world and life. Um, Fast forward, it was interesting because in the beginning of starting it, Jason was like, "We gotta cap how much we can pay people because of donor dollars." But as you're speaking, Eric, I saw something I've never seen before, in my mind about all money comes from individual human beings. Whether you have a for profit, whatever for and non means, because we need a profit, um, all money comes from individuals. Whether you're going out to buy a pair of shoes or you're going out to save a kid's life, it's all individual money. So, really, I get so adamant that we've got to do our due diligence and be so structured in how we spend donor dollars. And I mean that. We are so careful about how we spend donor dollars, but you should always be careful about individual dollars. And our money literally goes to try to find quality staff. If we don't hire quality staff, they end up hurting the kids and the whole entire program. It's a ripple effect on the whole entire program. So it started with me and Jason. It had to grow into like one assistant. We couldn't pay people for years. People just had to volunteer their time. We didn't take money for years. Jason didn't get paid for the longest time. We were probably in our third office by the time anyone really started getting paid. I guess our second office going into our third. Um, and we had to start paying people something and just have faith over fear because you can't have both. You can't have faith and fear at the same time. And so we just started to pay people money. It was tough because you have to believe that money is coming in, that people are understanding what you're doing. And there's been a lot of lousy nonprofits out there that have ripped people off and said they're doing something that they're not doing. Well, I guarantee you, with all that's happened in our life, we are doing what we're doing and we will stay doing it, but we can't do it without quality people and money to do it. So now we have 24 on staff. Now there's a good chunk of that. There's about 12 to 13 that are full-time in it to win it staff members from our executive offices who run the whole thing from finances to marketing to social media, all the things over here. You got to have a CPA and then move over to the campus. You've got to have house guardians that live in the house with the kids. You've got to have educators. You have to have a campus coordinator. You have to have a program director and an executive director, or you can't run the program. Now, how in the world am I supposed to get quality people paying everyone 40,000 or less, 50,000 or less? Like, there are people out there making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing totally different work, and our job is never over. Yesterday, I get off work, and one kid that is a non-residential kid is suicidal. And so I have to get on the phone and talk to her and her mom. One kid that graduated from our program is missing. They can't find her. They don't know if she went off with a 19-year-old boyfriend. I mean, there was so many fires being started, plus staff getting sick, plus staff resigning. It's so much. We have got to start paying better and having the ability to do the projects that we need to do.
I've had the opportunity to interact with a couple of your team that have been with you for a while, Sarah and Jamie, and have had really good experiences with them. So I'm curious, it's a challenge to get those people, and then you got to keep those people. They both seem like people who are really passionate about what they do. So yeah, I'm just curious, because this is something, whether it's a nonprofit or a for impact is what you call it, Eric, organization, uh, or if you're a for-profit corporation, it's still the same challenge of, like, how do you keep those good people? So when you work in this, line of work where resources can be tight sometimes and everything, what is the secret to, like, okay, I've got this great person here doing a great job. How do I keep them? Because they could probably go over here and, make more.
Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to poach my good people, and it makes me very mad. Even even when we had our last board meeting, one of the board members, he's always trying to maneuver Jamie over to his side. I'm like, "Stop it. Stop trying to get people from us." Um, they have to be mission over money minded. But I have to be, as my job as CEO, I the mission is just the other day I was thinking, I was a little broken. We had somebody resign that I thought was gonna be amazing on the team, and I was really stressed and upset because we had a whole path in Growth Club of how we were gonna get kids, full 15 plus kids on our campus by May, and this person resigning destroyed that whole journey, and I was pretty upset. And I felt like I was taken back to when Jason and I first heard the story about the little girl. We didn't just hear a story, it imprinted on our hearts, and we experienced that little kid's trauma, and we'll never stop. So you have to get people like that that are so overly mission minded that they know it's a calling and a purpose. It's not a job. You get somebody for the job, we're never going to be enough. Nobody's ever gonna be enough in a for impact organization. We're just not. We don't have the benefits that other people have. We don't have the salaries that other people have. It goes so far into the program. That doesn't mean that we can't. We need to have a budget around 3 to 5 million a year, and we're at about 1.2 right now. I mean, we're around $86,000 a month paying people very low wages. Like, we have got to get our money up to where the standard that we wanna operate is at for these kids. How dare somebody think we shouldn't have the ability to pay people quality money for quality work to change the lives of these young kids. We have 4 kids on campus right now with 1 coming on the way, with multiple kids on our, waiting list. How do we have a waiting list when we have up to 30 beds on that campus? So that challenge goes out to everybody out there. You have got to fuel us. We're like a insurance policy that you wanna make sure that it's activated, but you never wanna use it. You never wanna use us.
So, let's talk a little bit, and I love your passion. I love your passion for the kids. I love your passion for your people too, right? Because that's a big part of being a leader is, the people know you care. I worked with one of my peers that, when I was in corporate America said, and I think it was probably a Zig Ziglar thing, actually, now that I think about it, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? So as the organization has shifted from the 2 of you in a legal pad to now 24 employees, what are some of the, what are some of the key learnings that you've picked up along the way as it relates to growing an organization?
Trust but verify. I have taken the word for so many people. I'm here for life. I'm gonna do this forever. I'm here for the right reasons. And then they come in and you're going off of just passion. And they don't have the ability to do the job that you're asking them to do. I there's a big push for survivor leaders. I agree, but make sure you're to the place that you can jump in without getting re-traumatized. In what we do, it's very hard on people hearing the stories about the kids, even when they're not in direct care. It's still hard on people. It doesn't crumble me. It fuels me. It lights a fire under me because I'm a fighter. So I know that if you're going to be in a for impact organization, you have to be a fighter. You have to stand up and fight in the midst of how you feel about it. You have to constantly be determining, changing what success means. I'm not responsible for every kiddo's entire life. I'm responsible for giving them an opportunity for absolute freedom to make their own choices, good or bad choices. It's a place for opportunity. So it crumbles people when they look at just numbers. Kids are not just numbers. Stop looking at quantity over quality. We will never have the biggest numbers on the campus because it's a 2-year, 23 level program. So looking for creative ways for benefits, like with PTO, having themed days to find joy. You have to find joy in the midst of such sadness. We laugh over the dumbest of things, but it helps us to keep going to find that joy. And you have to not take on all the burdens of the kids. It's because if we're not built up to be able to do what we're doing, we'll crumble and we won't be able to take care of the kiddos. So it's a lot of strength. You have to have a faith. You have to have a safe environment to live in yourself. There's a lot of um self-help that you have to have so you don't burn out in a nonprofit.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. I can't imagine just being able to get up and keep doing that day after day. That takes some serious strength. So if people who are listening or watching want to support the Demand Project, I know you have a number of different events that you host. So what are ways that people can get involved or support the Demand Project?
So the demandproject.org would have all of our upcoming events on it. There's a scrolling banner on it, a hero banner. Immediately when you go on, there's ways to donate and get involved. I'd love to see end of year big donors come in because we've got a lot of things we're doing in 2026 for your children. But I'd also love to increase our reoccurring monthly donors. That's where the sustainability is. If we could have 1,000 people giving $25 a month, that would be incredible. If you can't give 25, give 15. If you can give more than 25, give 100, give 500. Whatever you can do, just get us in there somewhere. Come to our events. We have a beautiful gala, a golf tournament, um, a conference that we do, Beyond Awareness Conference, and we do a community event every year. Do an event for us. Like, just get involved. Find quality people to apply to be house guardians or campus coordinators. It's a revolving door with staff. So a lot of times my big trauma is not the kids on the campus's trauma, it's the staff. And it keeps churning over. So all of those things would help tremendously, Eric. If you have something to give it.
All right. Well, thank you, Kristen, for taking time out of your day to join us here on the Business Brains and BS podcast. We absolutely loved having you. And for those of you who are listening, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure that if you're with us on YouTube that you hit subscribe. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple, make sure you like, follow, give us a rating, share us with friends. And until next time, stay classy, Green Country.